everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Alex and today I'm going to be bringing you my mid-October wrap-up. Now I mentioned it in a previous video, I am going to be traveling out of the country towards the end of the month, so I know that I'm probably not going to be getting a whole lot of reading done in the second half of the month, but my numbers should still be okay because I've already completed 8 books so far in the month of October. I am filming this on the 14th, and today actually starts 2 different readathons that I'm going to be participating in. The first one is the Spookathon, which is hosted here on YouTube by Books and Lala, and the second one is the Beware the Scare event that is happening in the Weeby Book and Book Club. They are both happening this week, and I've got 4, I think, books that I'm trying to read for those readathons, so hopefully that'll help my numbers stay about average for the month. Maybe if I do get really ambitious and read a little bit while I'm traveling, then they can even be a little bit higher. But today we're going to be talking about the 8 books that I have already completed in the month of October. Before we get into it, if you are new here and you're not already, be sure to go down and hit the subscribe button down below as well as the bell icon so that you never miss out on any of my content. And without further ado, let's get started. So the first book that I completed in the month of October was Beauty Queens by Libba Bray. I wanted to read this book because it was the last Libba Bray book that I needed to complete to do my backlist breakdown, which is a brand new series that I'm starting on my channel. I will link it up in the card if you haven't seen it already, but basically I go through every single one of Libba Bray's books in that video and just give you an entire breakdown of her backlist. So Beauty Queens is a female Lord of the Flies parody wherein these 50 beauty queens are on an airplane on their way to compete in the Miss Teen Dream beauty pageant, and their plane winds up crashing on this deserted island and they have to survive together. The place where this book shines is in its entertainment value. It was incredibly entertaining. I listened to the audiobook, which is narrated by Libba Bray, and I think that she did an incredible job. All of the different accents and voices of all of the beauty queens were really, really unique and distinct, and even though there were a lot of characters, it was not hard to ever tell them apart. There are also little ads and footnotes and things that Libba Bray puts in as well, and there are sound effects done, and the whole thing is just a really, really nice production. But like I said, this book was super entertaining. It is a parody and it says a lot about how we treat women in today's society, and it is very blunt and obvious. So if you're looking for something that has a little bit more nuanced social commentary, this is not going to be that, but it was funny, it was entertaining, and it did make me think. So overall, I wound up giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I finished in October was We Used to Be Friends by Amy Spalding, and I received this as an e-arc through NetGalley. This book is set to release on January 7th, 2020. Essentially, this is a story of 2 best friends, James and Kat, and it's told in dual timelines. So one timeline is moving forward and one timeline is moving backward, and you know that James and Kat are no longer best friends, and you get to watch their friendship break down. Now, I have been reading a lot of early reviews on this novel, and a lot of people are really, really loving it, but unfortunately it just didn't hit right for me, and I think that's because the timelines did not work for me. It may have just been the formatting of the novel personally that I was reading it. I read it in my Kindle app, and I don't think that it was formatted correctly, but for me it was really confusing to have one timeline moving forward and one timeline moving backward, because we would jump back and forth between chapters where they're talking and they're best friends, and then the next chapter they hate each other, but then the next chapter they're back to talking, and it was really confusing for me to keep it straight. I do think that if I read this in a print format where I can more easily flip back and forth and keep track of the chapters, that maybe that would have made a difference and it wouldn't have been so jumbled for me, but just the way that it was, unfortunately, did not work for me. Other than the timeline, my one big complaint with this novel is that these characters are supposed to be seniors in high school, and even though I'm pretty far removed from high school, I think that these characters were acting younger than that. I do not think that they were acting like 18-year-olds. I think that they were a lot more immature than that, and some of just the way that they acted and the things that they were fighting over just didn't seem like something that mattered to me that much when I was a senior in high school, and they just felt young to me. I will say I really enjoyed the subject matter of this novel. I feel like friendship breakups are something that we never see in YA, and it is something that everybody goes through, and it completely sucks, and I think that it really needs a place in the YA space, so I'm glad that this novel has been written, and I would definitely be willing to pick it back up once the print version releases in January, and maybe give it a reread, take it a little more slowly, and see if I would enjoy it that way, but unfortunately it just kind of missed the mark for me as it was, and I wound up giving it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. Next, I completed If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. Now, this book starts off with our main character, Oliver, and he has just gotten out of prison where he's been serving a 10-year sentence for a crime that he may or may not have committed, and as soon as he gets out, the detective that put him in jail wants to know the truth about what happened. So we wind up going back in time at 10 years ago. Oliver and his friends are theater majors in college, and we get to watch as a murder happens, and we get to see what actually happened, who's responsible, yada yada. Now, this novel was the perfect book for me to pick up in October. I listened to the audiobook and it was really, really well done. It was really creepy and haunting and spooky and just overall perfect for the fall time. Now, I have heard a lot of people compare this novel to The Secret History by Donna Tartt, and it definitely has those same vibes. I will say I enjoyed If We Were Villains more than I enjoyed The Secret History. I feel like this one was a more appropriate length. You had little tiny snippets of the present while most of the story happened in the past, and I really appreciated the way that that was done. And just in general, the whole time I was just on the edge of my seat. It was really suspenseful. I just kept wanting to know what happened, and that ending, if you have read this, please talk to me, because that ending. So overall, again, I highly enjoyed this one. If you haven't read it yet and you're interested in this kind of gothic mystery-esque kind of thing, I would definitely give it a shot, and I wound up giving it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I completed was A Dress for the Wicked by Autumn Krause. This book is a YA fantasy, and it follows our main character, Emmeline. And Emmeline is a country girl, and in the city, there is this fashion house that holds an interview every year where they bring in a few girls from the city to try to compete to become a designer for the fashion house. They have never invited anybody from the country to participate. It's only ever been for city girls, but this year they are inviting a country girl to come into the interview, and she winds up getting selected. So the story mainly just follows her being in the competition, being in the fashion house, learning about how city politics work, and so on and so forth. Overall, I did enjoy this. I think that it was a really promising debut novel. Autumn Krause is definitely a talented wordsmith, and you can tell that she's passionate about fashion. Just the writing style in this was really atmospheric, and she pays a whole lot of attention to the different details and the fabrics, and you can really picture in your head the different fashions and outfits and patterns and designs that they're talking about. I will say also, I really enjoyed Emmeline as a character. She is feisty. She is not going to let anybody step on her. She knows what she wants. She knows that she deserves it, and she's out to get it, and she is not going to let anybody stand in her way, and I really appreciated that about her. I will say this is a fantasy, but there is no magic involved, but I will say I wish that there would have been a little bit more world building. I feel like we were in the fashion house the majority of the time, and we didn't get a whole lot of talk about the city in general, or even about the history of the country that they're in. So I wish that we would have gotten a little bit more of that, but I do feel like this book sets itself up for a sequel, so maybe we'll get a little bit more of that if the sequel does go through. My one major complaint with this novel was the love story. It was very insta love for me. It was like the guy and girl met once and they were like just talking and it was fine, and then as soon as the girl realizes that maybe possibly potentially the guy might be interested in her, she is immediately in love with him, and it was just really annoying to me. I couldn't really get behind it, and that was just my one complaint with this novel. So overall, like I said, this was an impressive debut. I would definitely like to read the sequel if there is one, and just read more from this author in the future. Not my favorite thing that I've ever read, but if it sounds interesting to you, it's worth a shot. I wound up giving this one a 3 out of 5 stars. The next novel that I completed was The Dream Daughter by Diane Chamberlain. This book starts out in 1970 and it follows our main character, Caroline Sears. Now, Caroline's husband was sent to Vietnam to fight in the war, and he passed away over there, and right after he was sent over, she found out that she was pregnant. Well, now fast forwarding a little bit, she has found out that her unborn child has a heart defect and there is little that they can do. They think that it is going to be fatal, and she is devastated. Well, her brother-in-law, Hunter, comes to her and tells her that he is actually a time traveler, and he wants to send her to the year 2001 where she can have fetal surgery on her child in order to save its life. There are a lot more twists and turns and a lot more that happens in this novel, but I really don't want to say much more than that. This was a really incredible read. I think if you are a mother or a wife, then you will be especially touched by this novel, but just in general, I think that anybody that's interested in romance, time travel, family novels, anything, will enjoy this novel. There are so many different genres that this touches on. There's so much that the main character goes through that just has you pulling for her, and this was just a very well crafted novel. This is one that I listened to on audio, and I found myself trying to find more things to do around the house or more reasons to get in the car so that I can continue listening to this, because I just want to know what happened and I needed to get to the end, and there were like audible gasps. I was physically shocked at some of the points in this novel. Sometimes I thought that I knew where the story was going to go, and then it went in a completely different direction, and it was just phenomenally done. So if this sounds like something that you're interested in, I've heard a couple of people talk about it, but not many. So if you're interested in time travel, I would recommend this one. I wound up giving it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next, I completed Vicious by V.E. Schwab. Now, this is the story of two main characters, Eli and Victor, and they were roommates in college, and they were researching these beings called EOs, or extraordinaries, essentially superheroes, and they were trying to determine if they could make themselves into EOs. Well, fast forward 10 years later, Eli and Victor are now arch enemies, so we get to see their nowadays relationship play out and how they are trying to defeat each other, as well as the whole story of how we got to where we are. Now, I will say in general, I have kind of struggled with V.E. Schwab and Victoria Schwab's works. They've been pretty hit or miss for me, but I will say this one was a hit. Now, anybody and everybody has already read this novel. Anybody and everybody has already loved this novel. I don't think that I've ever heard a single bad review on it, and I definitely understand why. The dynamic between Eli and Victor was just beautifully done in the past and the present, and the way that it was formatted, we are mainly following the backstory, but we get little snippets here and there of what's happening now. And I think that that was really well done, and it made for some very, very well timed reveals. Felt like the pacing of this was perfect, the plot was interesting, the twists were awesome, the powers were really cool. Everything about this was really, really, really nice. Now, I know that there is a sequel to this novel. I haven't gotten to pick it up yet, but I probably will. I think that this one does stand on its own pretty well, but I am interested to see what may happen in the sequel. I only gave this one a 4 stars. When I rated this on Goodreads originally, right after I read it, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, but now thinking about it, I'm actually gonna bump that up. So I give it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I completed in the month of October was Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. Now, this book follows our main character, Jules, and she lives in New York City. She is pretty down on her luck, and there is this apartment building in the city called the Bartholomew. She winds up getting the opportunity to move into the Bartholomew as an apartment sitter for 3 months. She's going to be paid a ridiculous salary, and she thinks that it is the perfect reset button. But the longer that she stays in the Bartholomew, she learns about these rules that seem really, really strict and strange, and she learns about the creepy past with Bartholomew, and maybe not everything is as great as it seems. Now, this is my first Riley Sager novel. I've been hearing about his novels for a while, and I've heard a bunch of people say that this is their favorite from him. I saw it at the library, had to pick it up, and this was really good. Well, you're following Jules throughout her time in the Bartholomew, and you're also getting little looks into her backstory and her family and why they are no longer with her, and it was really, really interesting to get to see both sides of her, the now and then. And one place that I think this novel was really well done was in the pacing. There was enough time for you to make your own predictions about what you think might happen, but it wasn't so slow that you had to wait forever for the reveal. I think that it was paced really, really well. The characters in this are all really dynamic, and when you're wondering what's really going on and who might be behind the creepiness, and when you're reading through this novel, you really don't have any clue what's going on. It's like, is it haunted? Is there somebody, a human, hurting people? And you really don't know. And all these different characters that you meet, it could be anybody. Anybody could be involved in what's happening. And it was really, really, really interesting. I totally understand the hype with this novel. It's got that weird, creepy, gothic feel. It's just like on the edge of your seat. I don't want to read it anymore, but I can't look away. It was really well done. So if you're looking for something like that and you haven't picked this up yet, I would definitely recommend it. And I wound up giving it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. The last book that I've completed in the month of October is City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. I know I wound up reading 2 Victoria/V.E. Schwab novels in this month, which was kind of weird. Didn't really plan on it, but this one was available in my library. I needed something really quick before the readathon started, and this fit the bill. This is a middle grade novel that follows our main character, Cassidy, and her parents are ghost hunters. Toward the beginning of the novel, they tell Cassidy that they have gotten their own TV show, and they are going to be heading to Edinburgh, Scotland to film for the show. Now, Cassidy is actually able to move back and forth in and out of the veils, so she can actually see ghosts and has a ghost that she befriends throughout the novel. And she gets into some creepy, spooky trouble once they reach Edinburgh. Now, like I said, me and Victoria/V.E. Schwab had kind of a hit or miss relationship in the past. She writes her adult novels under V.E. Schwab, which I've really enjoyed her adult novels, but then her YA and middle grade are under Victoria, and those haven't been so great. This one was my favorite of Victoria Schwab's, but it still wasn't phenomenal. I do think that this was really cute. It is appropriate for a middle grade audience. I feel like some middle grade novels are obviously written for a middle grade audience, but they kind of transcend and anybody can enjoy them. I do feel like this is one that sticks to the middle grade, and a middle grade audience would enjoy this more than I would at 24 years old. Obviously, this is a middle grade novel. You can expect that it would be a little bit short, but I would have liked for it to be a little bit longer. It's not even 300 pages long, so I think it could have benefited from a little bit more material, and I would have liked to see a little bit more of Scotland, but overall, it had an interesting plot, the characters were fun, Cassidy was a really fun character to follow. And even though I feel like the plotline was a little bit rushed, I do feel like it was interesting, it kept me engaged, and this was just a cute, fun weekend read for October. I know that there was a second book in the series that just came out. I think it's called Tunnel of Bones. I'm not sure if it's a direct sequel or just a companion, but regardless, I would be interested in it, but it's not my #1 priority right now. Overall, I wound up giving it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So that is everything that I have completed so far in the month of October. As usual, I'll go ahead and tell you guys what I'm in the middle of so that you can know a couple things to expect for my end of the month wrap up. So the first thing that I'm reading right now is Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. I am not that far into this. I'm only about 15 pages in so far, but this is the longest book that I'm going to be reading for the 2 readathons I'm doing right now. So I figured I need to start it first. That way I could have the whole week to try to get it done. Honestly, I'm not even that far into this to know what it's about, and I'm trying to avoid spoilers. I think that I might have been spoiled for a little thing. I heard somebody say something about this novel, but I don't actually know enough about this novel to know if that was even a spoiler, so I'm not even gonna say anything about it. Just know that I'm reading this. I'm also listening to The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. Again, don't know a whole lot about this yet because I'm not that far into it. I just know that there are 2 men and their daughter that are in this cabin and things are happening. I know this is labeled under horror on Goodreads, so we'll see where I take this. And the last book that I'm currently reading is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This is one that I am taking all throughout the month. I'm using the Serial Reader app to give me little tiny doses of it every single day, and I will have it done right in time for Halloween. So I am a little less than halfway through it at this point. It's okay. It's not what I expected it to be, but we're just gonna keep chugging along and see how we like it at the end of the month. So that is it for my mid-October wrap-up. If you have read any of these novels, let me know what you thought about them in the comments down below, and let me know some books that you have already completed in October. As always, if you like this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up, as well as hitting the subscribe button and the bell icon down below so that you never miss out on any of my content. So until next time, bye!